I'm Tomasz Poszytek. I know that the last name is quite difficult to pronounce. I'm working and living in Warsaw in Poland, Europe. And I'm mainly focusing in my everyday work on processes. Actually, I'm just working with Power Platform, but mainly with Power Automate recently for over a year now, with Power Automate Desktop and adaptive cards. I think since I acknowledged that the technology actually exists 3 years ago, I think, became some kind of a technology of my favorite technology in Power Platform, because it's very useful across all the applications that do support adaptive cards, so Teams, Outlook, Flow as well, and as well the bot framework and PVA. And I'm really keeping my fingers crossed that it will be even more popular and become available in more than just these mentioned already. For example, maybe it will appear in Power Apps or somewhere there. Nevertheless, I'm working with adaptive cards as well in my process, because this is a really a easy way to create very sometimes even very complex forms with a lot of logic behind, with conditions, with some fields which are appearing and being hidden, with validation and requirements, and then send them directly, for example, to Teams or to Outlook. And so I don't really have to take care about the UI layer. It is being done for me because of how the adaptive cards are working, but it really speeds up creation of processes and logic in those processes, because this way I can very quickly grab a response from users. And so recently I was involved in RPA project. So for those of you who haven't ever heard about RPA, this is robotic process automation. So that's a technology that actually simulates user behavior on the machine. So it helps us to fill in those gaps between some legacy old systems, and modern solutions like Cloudflows. So where Cloudflow is unable to reach out to a desktop application or old database or anything that doesn't have a digital API, then we can use RPA, which is configured to click those UI elements, those fields, those text boxes, buttons, menu items, as if there was a regular user who is clicking all those UI elements, and then populate those fields, those transactions. I mean, just do what would the regular user do, and then grab the outcomes, send them back to Cloudflow, and this way to be like this integration layer between what we have in a cloud and what we have elsewhere, like in on-premises servers. And the solution was about automatical acceptance of invoices. And in that case, the invoices were actually in a website application. Still, even though that the whole system where those invoices were present and were meant to be accepted was online, was built as a website, it didn't have any kind of REST API or any other API that could be queried, so that this acceptance could be done automatically or faster. And customer wanted to have that process automated, because it was simply taking too much time for employees to go through every invoice, and they are having hundreds of the invoices per month, and do all those comparisons and acceptance manually. So the goal was just to take a list of invoices to be accepted from SAP, and then navigate to that website, compare data from one list with another, and accept these invoices that were able to be, or that meant to be accepted. And everything was fine until the day before the solution was meant to be launched productively. The operator of the website introduced reCAPTCHA, because they wanted to be more secure and simply secure the logging procedure with reCAPTCHA, so to avoid bots from signing in. So reCAPTCHA is that technology that appears mostly at, that appears in all those scenarios on websites where we as users are meant to provide something, to post a comment, sign in, go through some checkout process in a basket, like anywhere we usually are providing some data and sending this data to the web server, there is CAPTCHA to like avoid all these bots that could be doing some things manually, or sorry, automatically, and as well to limit the load that can be then transferred to the web server, well, so that only those transactions that are really coming from the real users are allowed. So reCAPTCHA is looking like that. There are like 3 types of reCAPTCHA already. The most commonly used now is the reCAPTCHA v.2, although there is as well reCAPTCHA v.3, which is less visible and is doing this kind of validation whether the agent is a user or a bot based on some kind of automatic discovery. I don't know how this score is calculated, but this reCAPTCHA v3 is simply trying to discover whether the person, the agent that is operating on the website is a bot or not. But basically, for a regular user, CAPTCHA is not an issue. So you're simply asked to, I mean, before this challenge that you saw appears, you need to like access the same website or reCAPTCHA a couple of times per day, so that after, I know, like a 10th approach, 10th selection that you are not a bot, this challenge is going to be displayed. Before, it is only, you only need to simply select the checkbox and that's it. But then selecting the checkbox for the bot is not a challenge, although figuring out which tiles it should select when asked to, hey, select all images with stairs is a challenge already. And so I was thinking about maybe doing some kind of image recognition and trying to do that with some AI builder, but then I didn't know how to actually split this whole image into those small tiles and then analyze one by one. So what I decided to do is to simply make the bot to ask a user, the business user, for an input. And when speaking about attended, I mean, one additional thing in RPA is that this technology can be running in like 2 modes. It can be running in attended mode, so the one that you're actually in front of a computer and you're seeing what the bot is doing. So in that case, reCAPTCHA is not going to be an issue, because if it appears, then the bot would simply display like a message to the user, hey, help me. User resolves reCAPTCHA, clicks OK, and then bot continues. But the case I'm talking about was happening in unattended mode, so somewhere on the remote server, on virtual machine in Azure. And so business users were not meant even to access that virtual machine. So I was thinking about a solution that would actually help the bot to resolve reCAPTCHA, but without an actual need for the user to log into the virtual machine. And the solution I created is doing the very, well, quite an easy steps. So first is taking a screenshot with that reCAPTCHA displayed. Then is sending an actionable message to user inbox with a question, help me resolve that reCAPTCHA, like select which tiles should be selected by me. And then once a user responds, bot simply selects these images which are indicated by the user, and this way it can resolve the reCAPTCHA. So having that said, let me show you how this solution works. So first, I would run this reCAPTCHA demo. So close that window. And so what you'll see in just a moment is that the bot is going to actually trigger the website that you've seen just a moment ago with a fresh start, with a form displayed. And well, it will possibly be again facing that reCAPTCHA challenge. So I will not be going into the details about how the whole bot solution is built. If you are interested around that, you can simply navigate to my latest YouTube video, and there this solution is described in details, like what actual steps the bot is taking. I will now focus really only that part around actionable message. Okay, let's see if it is able to now click. Oh, So it clicked that checkbox, so the challenge is displayed, and now in just a few moments, I should be sent an email with that actionable message. So stay tuned. Another challenge that is happening here is that this challenge that you see now is being displayed is only active for like 2 minutes. So I was trying to do my best to have this solution working as fast as possible, although there are obviously some delays, and I will tell you where. So that's the email with an actual message. So here is a screenshot for the user so they can actually see what is in there. And then they're asked as well to select the layout so that it's like 3-on-3 or 4-on-4. So there are like different checkboxes present here. And in the end, user has to select those which are with motorcycles, which is these, that, and this one. So once this is resolved, there is a confirmation message, and then the bot should now select these tiles that I have marked as those containing, motorcycles. So this way, bot was able to resolve reCAPTCHA, submit the form, and actually go through that challenge, which is just impossible to solve by regular bots. And as said, this solution is actually working on virtual machine somewhere in the cloud, so users are not accessing it, and the only way of interacting is this kind of adaptive card. All right, so that was the demo. I hope
that's cool. That was super cool.
Let me go simply just to the solution, like how it was built, because that might be more interesting in terms of our call today. So we have as well, as I saw David with us. David, sorry, I'm just using these old actionable messages. I know that one day it should be replaced with something more modern with universal actions and so on. But until I am able to use it, I am still relying on this old approach. So first and the most important thing around actionable messages is that if you want to let Power Automate to send those kind of dynamic mails to your inbox or to other inboxes in your organization, you need to register this actionable email provider. So you need to go to outlook.office.com, connectors, OAM, and publish, and there you can register a new provider. And you have 3 options on how this provider, on the scope of the provider. So the first is just your mailbox, and that one is like approved automatically because this will only allow you to send that email to yourself. Others, even if you will send that mail to others, they won't see the card displayed. So they will see just a blank mail or only the HTML contents. Then the second scope is organization, so that you will be able to send this to any person within your tenant, but then you will need an approval from Exchange admin. And there is as well global, which allows you or will allow you to send that email to anyone within Office 365, and that requires approval from Microsoft. So I've created this organizational, use this organization scope, and the next thing that you have to create as well are those target URLs, so where data from those actionable messages is going to be sent. What I've done, I just used this kind of regex mask so that I simply created a provider that will allow me to send data from actionable message to any Cloudflow or any Logicflow, actually, because I'm not a developer, and data from my cards is simply being sent to other Cloudflows, and then it is being handled there. And lastly, you can define as well, it is not visible here, but you can define from which addresses those actionable messages will be sent. So again, you should define the providers or the emails, the mailboxes that will be sending those messages. And so once you have it, you need to get this provider ID, and that's the most important thing around actionable messages when you want to send them to your inboxes. So then the second thing I built is actually the flow that is being called from the RPA. So RPA is triggering this Cloudflow. It is passing to this Cloudflow some basic information like the instance ID, so that I am able to like bind specific information, specific request with specific instance, specific RPA instance. And the screenshot you saw is being uploaded to OneDrive. So first flow is like checking if that file has been uploaded and is available. If not, it is waiting until that screenshot is uploaded. So this is the first place where the whole solution is actually wasting or losing some time, because this sync between the server and OneDrive can take a couple of seconds. I mean, second, 2 seconds. It's quite fast usually, but that's the first place where the bot is waiting. Then it's creating a record in Dataverse where it's storing information about this particular reCAPTCHA challenge request. And then, based on if the bot was able to find out if the layout of CAPTCHA is 3-on-3 or 4-on-4, or wasn't able to find out, is sending a different adaptive card. So the one you saw is actually containing this option to select the layout. So first user is requested to select layout because bot wasn't able to discover it, and because based on the layout, the image tiles are different. Therefore, bot is asking user to first select this layout, right? So first the layout, then depending on what the layout is set, there are different checkboxes to be selected, and what then? So the next important thing around the design of adaptive card is the fact that you need to add this originator parameter, which is just the provider ID from that actionable messages dashboard. So this is that value. Without it, you won't be able to actually pass through the actionable message. And there are as well some other minor differences between the regular adaptive card and actionable message. So for example, the fact that buttons here were cut off is because I didn't choose that option here. So I'll just press it again. And okay, there are the buttons. For example, the fact that in actionable messages, we are able to create a button that is a type of action HTTP that is not present in regular adaptive cards. And so in that action, so depending on which button is visible and which button user clicks, those buttons are sending posts to that other Cloudflow that I have built as well, and I will show you in a moment. And as well, they are sending a body, and then in body they are sending just a table of all the statuses for all checkboxes which are present. So then, if any checkbox is marked as true, then bot knows that it has to select this particular checkbox. Also, there is information about what is the layout of that reCAPTCHA, or the instance ID of the flow to have this record in place, and as well record ID, so the information about the Dataverse record that was created by the flow in the first place, so that the second flow I will show you in a moment knows what information or where to update the information in Dataverse, which record in Dataverse it has to update, or maybe this way. Right. Right. So once this whole adaptive card is created, it is then the second thing that is different between adaptive cards like in Teams and those sent in Outlook. You need to wrap that content, that adaptive card JSON, in script type application adaptive card plus JSON. So like you need to surround this in the script tags, and only then you are able to simply put this script into the body of an email. And apart from that script, actionable message script code, you're as well able to put other HTML. So you can really write a regular HTML email. The thing that in my case is used to like hide the whole body is this parameter in the beginning, which is telling again the actionable message whether to hide everything else apart from actionable message, or maybe to show as well whatever else is in that email written. But in my case, even if there was anything written, then it is being hidden. And so mail is sent, and what else? Then the flow is waiting 90 seconds for the response from the user. So it's like checking every 2 seconds whether that row it was created in the beginning is already updated. And if it is updated, it means that user clicked resolve, which triggered this second flow to handle the user input for the reCAPTCHA. And this flow is much more simple because it only, well, first it checks if this whole operation is not timed out. So if user actually resolved that reCAPTCHA after 1.5 minutes, it means it was too late. And then simply bot is sending a response telling the user that this reCAPTCHA challenge has expired. And so bot is trying to like 5 times, up to five times to send again that email with a fresh new CAPTCHA. So if after 5 times user is still unable to resolve that, then the bot will simply stop and wait until someone actually signs into that virtual machine and resolves the CAPTCHA manually. But if user is lucky enough to fit in with within those 1.5 minutes, then bot updates a row, so that record with information which images were selected, and is sending a response back to the user that you saw once I click resolve with information, thank you for helping the bot to resolve reCAPTCHA challenge. And so if the record is resolved, then flow is simply continuing and is sending back the response to the RPA with information which images were selected and what is the type of the CAPTCHA. If anything went wrong, if user wasn't able to make it within the time, or if there were any errors or whatever happened else, then it is sending back this code 400, which is again telling the bot that it has to retry the whole process. So to refresh the website and get the new CAPTCHA and again request user to resolve it from their inbox. And also the cool thing about actionable messages is the fact that you don't necessarily need to do that straight from your inbox. You can as well do it on your mailbox, on your mobile phone. Sorry. So if your Outlook on the phone on your mobile is following the requirements for actionable messages, you are as well able to simply resolve this challenge straight from your phone. So you don't have to even go to your laptop and check what is displayed there. So that's another cool thing about this whole solution. And well, this is how it's built. As you already see, there are like several situational places that are actually making delays to the whole process, so that can impact how fast this is being resolved. But so far it is like running since a week, and it's quite successful. So every day in the morning, there is this reCAPTCHA challenge mail sent, sometimes twice, sometimes 3 times. But in the end, users are like waiting if there is anything popping up to your mailboxes and are ready to resolve. So far, so good. The bot is working without any issues. And yeah, that's it. I hope you liked it.
That was awesome, Tomasz. Thank you so much for sharing that demo.
You're welcome.
Back to the presentation. And I know Tomasz, he gave himself a very humble introduction, but he is a very smart MVP and he is very talented with adaptive cards. I've gone ahead and in the chat, I tossed the link to one of his blog posts that he has on the Microsoft Tech community blog site, which is getting started with adaptive cards. I know many users in here are probably very familiar with adaptive cards, but there's always something to learn. And this article really helped me when I was ramping up on the team, since I haven't joined the team for a super long time. His YouTube, which is also linked in the chat, also has really good content. I specifically remember watching his video on Outlook actionable messages, and that also helped with the ramp up when I joined the adaptive cards team. So thank you, Tomasz, for joining us in this community call as well.
Thank you very much for this wide introduction.